Hi, I'm Rebecca Z Artist, and I'm here today with some very basic tips for how to use your iPhone or your iPad photo editing for purposes of presenting your art to the world. Why do artists need to know about photography and photo editing? Because generally, those of us who begin painting later in life, let's say, um, many of us have never been schooled in how to do photo editing. We're not necessarily adept at using the devices that we've come to be dependent on. And as an artist anymore, if you want to connect with anyone who is um, trying to view your work from a distance, which during this era in time is everyone, we need to be able to present our work in its best light, and that always involves taking a good photograph, or at least being capable of taking a mediocre photograph and turning it into something better. And so I want to help you with that. And if you don't know the fundamentals, I'd like to just acquaint you with them in the easiest way possible, which is to do a quick how-to video. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is take you to my desktop, and I'll have both my iPhone and my iPad here, and I'll just talk you through some very fundamental editing moves that, for the most part, will be foundational to turning your mediocre photographs into something really nice. So bear with me while I change screens here and show you my desktop. I'm going to move my computer out of the way, and I'm going to show you my iPad, which is here, and I have an iPhone. Now, it really doesn't matter what model iPhone or iPad you have. This is the basic, fundamental um, photo editing equipment that you have loaded onto any of your devices. It's the iPhoto application, which comes as standard on both the iPhone and the iPad. And it's a pretty robust photo editing program. Honestly, I think it really does the bulk of anything that I need it to do when it comes to editing my photos. Now, this is a painting that is one that I wanted to take a photograph of. And so I tried to just very consciously take a very mediocre photograph of it. As you can see, there's a lot of um, debris in the background that is not the painting. It's not necessarily, it's a little bit askew. And so I want to show you how you can take this really substandard photograph and turn it into something much better. So first of all, if you go from your home page and you hit the Photos app, this is where your photographs will live. When you've taken a photograph, whether it's on your iPhone or done with your iPad, so long as both are synced to the same account, all of those photos will go into your Photos app. And when you open your app, it may look something like this. These are all albums, and I like to organize my photos into albums so that I might be able to find what I need. But the most recent photos will be here in this top album, which is labeled Recent. So if I scroll through here, I'll be able to find the photo that I was looking for and click on it. And when I do, it enlarges it, as you see. And that same functionality is here on the iPhone. If I go in and open up my photos and I go to albums, I can go into my recent album and I can click on the photo that I want to bring up. So both of them are available in just the same way. Both systems are alike. So just for the ease of demonstration, I'm going to show you on the iPad because it's bigger, but just know that the same functionality that I'm showing you on the iPad is also on your iPhone. Okay, so here is this very mediocre photo. I want to show you first and foremost what I would suggest for every photo, and that is to crop. And how you do that, you can basically click on the photo like I just did, and it will bring up this screen that gives me the opportunity to press a button that says edit in the right hand corner. So I'm going to press that button. Great. So now it's taken me into this editing window. The same is true here on my phone. If I click on that photo, it will call up the ability to edit. And so here I am in the same window on my iPhone. Again, they're both the same. So nothing is going to be different except maybe the setup. Now, in your phone, the buttons that are at the bottom are the same ones that are coming up on the left-hand side of my iPad screen. There's one that looks like a clock. There's one that looks like a bunch of circles, a little pyramid of circles, and the other that looks like a square with arrows. Okay, so here we have the same three tools on the very bottom. Let's talk about these tools here on the left on my iPad. The one that is the square with arrows is your cropping tool. So let's go into that cropping tool by simply clicking that button. Okay, it brings up this square that if you grab one of the corners can allow you to come in and tighten up on the subject matter and change the overall composition. One of the cool things about this cropping tool is that it gives you a grid that can show you where the optimal placement for a focal point might be, and that's wherever the tic-tac-toe intersects. So these four little corners can sometimes help you sort of put what's most important in one of those four little corners, and it can help you improve your composition immediately. So this is the cropping tool. If you come in from the side, it's going to change the overall ratio proportion of this photograph and of the overall dimensions. But if you come in from the corner, it will keep the proportions and just change the size. So that's the difference. If you move from the side, it's going to change the proportions. If you move from a corner, it will keep the proportions. All right, so that is your cropping tool. Now, one of the cool sub programs within this cropping program are the three little icons that pop up when you're in the cropping window. And I want to really address that because this is a cool new functionality that is available both on the iPhone and the iPad. When you're in the cropping function, you'll get three different editing options. Okay, so let's talk about what they are. The one that looks like Saturn is at the top, and if you slide the bar, you'll notice that it changes the horizon line, okay? And that's why it looks like Saturn, is because it's showing you where the horizon is going through the circle. Now this happens to be pretty straight. When I bring this up, you'll see that it ends up being pretty well aligned at the top and at the bottom. There's not a lot of tilting going on. If my painting were a little bit tilted though, I'd be able to slide this bar and get things to sort of get better aligned. You'll know where you started out because that's the 0 point. When it sits at 0, that's where it began. So you can adjust that if you need to. In this instance, I don't, so I'm going to look at the next cropping function, which is to change the orientation from front to back. And you see how it distorts the image? This often happens when we are taking photographs. Our camera is not at exactly the same angle as our subject, and so we'll get some distortion from front to back or from side, even from side to side. So when this happens, you can just sort of slide this bar to see if it improves the photo. And what you'll notice is when I slide this bar down about 5 degrees, look how the edges of my image line up better. And in fact, maybe I'll bring it in here so that you can really see it a little bit more easily. I'll crop this down by moving it in. There we go. And you'll see that when I do this, there's a certain point where everything kind of lines up, and oh boy, does that look better. Doesn't that look like a better photograph right there? So already I have improved the way this photograph looks. And in fact, I'm going to just adjust it just a little bit more. There, I like the looks of that. So now I'm going to bring it in tight to my photograph and eliminate that white edge along the outside. And all of a sudden, I have taken my very mediocre photograph and cropped out and straightened everything simply using the cropping tool. One button and then the little sub-program on that screen. Now the third piece here adjusts going from side to side if there's happens to be a tilt going in that direction. And what I would encourage you to do is just move it back and forth and see, does it improve things or does it not improve things? And if it does improve them, keep it. If it doesn't, then just go back to 0. And that is basically your cropping function and all of the really cool things that it can do for you. These new sub-programs are really wonderful, and I use them all the time. I predict that now that you know about them, you will too. Okay, so that is cropping. Now, the only other thing I want to introduce to you is another sort of magic button for you, and that is the magic wand tool. So I'm going to press done in this cropping window. And now I've got a really nice photograph of my painting. And look, it actually is a pretty good representation of my painting. Now, I'm going to also go back into the editing function. And I've just pressed the edit button. And I'm going to go over here to the right side where there's a magic wand button on the top, and I'm going to hit that. And now I'm going to unhit it. I'm going to hit it, and look what happens. I think that is really a nice looking photo. That is fine too, but I think this auto function actually does make for a lovely photo. One caution I would give you though, if you are an artist, and that is that you don't want to represent your photo, represent your painting in a photo that makes it look dramatically different. This photo does not necessarily represent this painting very well. There's quite a bit of difference in the way they look. And so it's possible to kind of change things so that they might look a little bit more representative. But if you're just going to make a card or do something just for your own personal use with it, sometimes these editing tools like this auto magic wand can be of assistance to you. So I would suggest that you play around with that and also really get to know your cropping tool. I think both of those are going to be a super helpful asset to you when you try to represent your paintings in the world. So with that, I'm going to just say that I hope that this lesson has been of help to you. A lot, and when it comes to the technology of being an artist, we as artists have so many tools at our disposal, and it's it's just a wonderful adjunct to what it is that we do as creative people in trying to envision our work as a painting. I'm going to be touching a lot on this in my Escape with Landscape class, which is coming up in January. I'll be taking you through three others of more of the sub programs here in the iPhoto, but also I'll be walking you through a few of my other apps that I love to use when it comes to envisioning my photographs as paintings. And so I hope you'll think about joining me for that. If not, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I hope you give it a thumbs up. And if you have any ideas for me of suggestions of videos that you'd like to have me make for you, I'd be very interested in those too. Take care, and I'll see you soon. And hopefully we'll be playing in the paint together before long.